As human beings, we all have thoughts. We have about 80,000 thoughts a day. And what the research shows is that 70% of those thoughts are actually unhelpful or even automated thoughts. So in this video, I'm going to take a deeper dive into explaining to you what are thoughts, where do they come from, how we can manage them, and manage them in a way that's going to help improve our mental health and well-being. So what are thoughts? Thoughts are like mental processes we use to make sense of the world. Now, we are not taught how to do this. And actually, thoughts are invisible. We can't actually see our thoughts, just as much as we can't really see what's going on in our bodies when it comes to our emotions, but we can feel them. Now, when it comes to our thoughts, the way in which thoughts are actually kind of created, it probably starts from our childhood, because thoughts are not just, those voices in our head that we get to, we kind of hear, but not out loud. Internally, we are able to interpret what our thoughts are saying to us. So thoughts can be words, they can be sentences, they can be memories, images. So even if you was to think about, I don't know, this time last week where you were, you're going to be able to make sense of that. You're going to be able to kind of even say inside your head that I was at a certain place at a certain time. And that's just the way the brain functions. And in a way, as human beings, it's one of the key kind of features that we have as human species. So in a way, it's great that we have the capacity to think, to interpret those thoughts, to kind of feel those thoughts. But actually, not all thoughts are helpful thoughts. And as a psychologist, one of the main things that I'm always working on with patients and clients is really understanding their thought processes, because this is where the evidence shows that our thoughts drive our emotions, and our emotions can impact on our physical body, and that then impacts on our behavior. Remember the hot cross bun model video? If you haven't seen that, then please click on that video, which is all about this connection that we have, that mind-body connection, and why that happens, and in examples in why that happens as well. So the other thing to remember about thoughts is that thoughts can also involve making predictions, making judgments, and they can be quite black and white as well. So they could be things like, I have to do this in order to do that. Or there could be lots of thoughts around, I should do this, or I must do this. So sometimes thoughts can also be related to things that, we are trying to focus on, but focusing on so much that actually it doesn't serve us very well. The other thing to remember about thoughts is that they're not facts. They really are not facts. And whenever I say that out loud in a clinic or in a consultation, I think what tends to happen is people tend to stop and realize that actually they're on an autopilot with their thoughts, and it's like a radio that gets turned on every single day. And when it's related to a particular illness or it's related to a particular goal, it becomes quite a heavy load on a daily basis. And in fact, what then happens is that those thoughts can become quite a barrier to change for some people. So let me give you an example. I work in diabetes, so I work with people that are trying to manage their blood sugar levels. And that's a very important outcome in type 1 diabetes and in type 2 diabetes, because patients cannot have their blood sugar levels reach so low that they would have a hypo attack, and that can be quite life-threatening. because it means that the body doesn't have enough glucose to function, to stay alive. Or the other end of the spectrum is when the body has too much glucose. So the numbers are way off the scale, they're too high. So they're in the sort of 30s and 40s, for example. But either end of the scale, what happens is patients can have thoughts that I can't do this, I'm not good at this, what if I have a hypo? What if my sugars go too high? What if I haven't given myself? So there's all these thoughts, and actually people living with diabetes have known to have more than 80,000 thoughts a day because they need to do lots more work around their health and their blood sugar levels. So the point here is that if a patient constantly thinks about their blood sugar levels and worries about falling into, let's say, a single digit, then they're going to spend a lot more time thinking about what they need to do to stay in double figures. But that's not always a good outcome. So the emotion there that's attached to that thought that if I stay in single figures, or if I stay in a single figure, I'm going to have a hypo. The emotion there is fear, anxiety. So the behavior there is going to be, right, I need to take more insulin and eat to stay in double digits. But actually, in the long run, that's not a good thing, because staying in double digits when you don't need to is just going to mean that your body has more glucose than it needs. And down the line, it just leads to more health problems. So you can see that one thought about what if I have a hypo, if I'm in single figures, is now sending signals to the brain that I need to do something to get back into double figures. Another example is when it comes to weight management. And again, this is an area I've worked in a lot, and lots of thought diaries, lots of thought processes around the way people think about themselves and the way that people think about their weight loss journey. And one of the common thoughts is around, I have failed at this, or I can't do this, or this is too hard. And again, it sends that same kind of emotional signal around, I've failed, I'm not good enough, this is not possible, I am so angry with myself for having that extra piece of cake, so this spirals, and then the body starts to get tense, and that feeling of discomfort arises, and the person ends up having even more cake. And it becomes this vicious cycle, but the driving point has started with that person's thought processes and their self-talk. Now, had that self-talk be more compassionate, that, okay, I've had this extra piece of cake, it's a one-off, it's a birthday, it's a celebration, the chances of that having a huge impact on their long-term goal is probably, not going to affect it so much. So you see, you can easily get caught up with your thoughts, and, they're not real. They're not facts. And, they feel like facts because we've focused on them. We've focused on them for so long. Often these thoughts are learned experiences that have come about for so many years that they become automatic. They just switch on even when you don't want them to switch on. So the key thing here to remember is, again, it's about awareness. Until we stop and we pause and we kind of fish for these thoughts and really look at them and analyze them, nothing changes. We end up in this cycle for a very long time. So this is where therapy comes in. And this is where, as a psychologist, I help people to really, use that magnifying glass. Let's take a deeper dive into each of these thoughts. And either we learn to kind of sit back and notice these thoughts and let them go, or we look at how we can create more positive thoughts. You know, how can we create that thought that I'm not good enough to I'm just trying my best here? And you notice the physical sensations in the body will always change when you have reframed that thought, that unhelpful thought, into a more helpful thought. So this takes time, and you know, it can take a number of sessions before a person can actually get used to becoming aware of that thought, breaking that autopilot. Again, this is all related to creating a new habit in that sort of relationship that we have with our thoughts, and then trying to, in real time, be able to manage those thoughts by still engaging in the activity that you want to, and not letting thoughts be the barrier to the change that you want to create. Now, the thing is, we need thoughts. You know, our thoughts, you know, they're part of our brain. In the prefrontal cortex is where it all kind of takes place. And, you know, these thoughts we need because on a daily basis, they help us to make decisions, you know, to think about things more rationally. You know, things like crossing the road, for example. We need to stop and think, is it safe to cross? Or if you're driving, is it safe to make this turn? So we do need thoughts. It's just thinking about those thoughts that are really not helping you. You know, they're really getting in the way of you being able to, you know, do what it is you want to do. You know, having the freedom from those unhelpful thoughts, you know, it's going to help you to achieve your goals. So the next time you have an unhelpful thought, just stop, pause, notice it. The more aware you become, the more those thoughts will start to lose its power. This is what I tell my clients, my patients, that the reason I ask them to focus on their thoughts is to just bring them to life, bring them to the from the subconscious to the conscious. So by doing that, we're breaking that autopilot. And that means the battery power of those thoughts over time will start to die. And they won't have as much of an impact on you as they might be having right now. So if you found this information useful or you would like more on this topic, then please leave a comment below. If you're interested in anything related to therapy, then please send me an email, or check out my website where there's more information on different types of therapies that can really help to change your thought patterns. There's therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, and compassionate focus therapy. So there's a whole range of therapies in psychology that, you know, can be tailored to suit your needs. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like, or even better, please subscribe for more videos related to this topic. And I look forward to seeing you again, and thank you for watching.